Done. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's session. So this session is actually planned as a part of the fourth anniversary of Student Developer Society. And today we have someone very special. We have Rushabh Mehta, who is actually the head of the CEO of Frappe, and he has contributed a lot to the FOSS community in India. And we are truly grateful that we are able to get him today for you guys. Hi, Rushabh.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for having me. I'm also very excited to have this chat. Yeah, and thanks for the nice introduction, Abraham.
Yep.
Yeah.
You've been someone like your work has always made me curious. And it's always interested me. Like it's very interesting the work you do. It's not just just entrepreneurship. It's a lot of things that go into there. A lot of things are well thought out. So I want to start out by asking you, what were the things that you had in mind when you started an organization like Frappe, and how has that vision changed in the years? It's been 12, 13 years now. So how has it changed?
So when you say no, it's well organized, well thought. It's not like that. In the hindsight, it looks very organized. In the forward direction, it's very chaotic. So I can give you a brief background. My coding journey is also very interesting. I had a very old machine at my home, and that's how and it was a Windows machine, MS DOS x86, and this is before the days of internet where you can only learn through books, right? So that's how I started. I got introduced to Windows first, DOS first, and then Windows, and then slowly uh, you know Visual Basic, Visual Studio. Completely in the Microsoft ecosystem, and and then when I was then I discovered Python. All of a sudden.
Right.
And then I saw Python, like, wow, this is so much better than Visual Basic, right? And then I realized it's free also. Wow. And that was like a double whammy, right? Not only is it good, but obviously I'd heard about open source free software from far, but never like really experienced or, been part of using such a platform. So Python was a revelation. And at that point, it became like absolutely clear to me that, this is the future of software. I mean,
Right.
there is no other way. So people ask me, why did you do open source? And I'm like, why would you do proprietary?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense, right?
Yes,
and then that became very clear to me. And the other things I just discovered on the way. There are a lot of nuances. There are a lot of sustainability, and all these things are very hard questions around free software. And
Exactly.
these are, there are no easy answers, but there are some concepts that you learn through time and through school of hard
Doing
knocks, as you
things.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Right.
it's all hindsight that it looks clear, but it's not really clear when it starts.
Right. So, when you started out, you had this vision, like you said. So, like as time went by, did you feel like you had to make a lot of compromises to the original vision to 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 make for the sake of the company, the for what you were doing for the people around you? So, how did that go about?
So not many compromises. For whatever reason, the concept was very clear in my head. So it
Right.
was always very clear, and I kind of grew up in a slightly liberal household. My grandfather was a Gandhian, and I think back on these things. Why you pick certain paths in life, and all these childhood influences are very important. That you think about socialism, and you are exposed
Right.
to the non-capitalist, or if you want to call it more alternativist way of thinking, right? And so all these things culminated. It was never a thought that should we do closed source. We so our cloud platform that we built is closed source, by the way. So
Right.
and the decision is taken by the engineers who are building it, right? And if they decide to open source it, they can do it anytime. Essentially, it does not block any user from using ERP Next or Frappe. It's just an orchestration that we build on top. Maybe we'll open source it at some point, but again, that's the only thing. But I don't really see in my mind as a compromise. But yeah, so that's some people would argue otherwise, but that's the only. So there is a lot of so at least in terms of ERP Next and Frappe, absolutely clear that the platform has to be completely clean. And anything that is ancillary, you may want to decide if you want to keep it, but it doesn't stop the users in any way, or it doesn't take away any of the core freedoms of anybody who uses ERP Next that way. So those things are absolutely clear, and those are categorical values is the way I call it. And I don't know if you've had this discussion in, in the FOSS United group, but there are always two ways of thinking. One is the utilitarian way, which says that if the outcome is good, you are justified to do whatever you want. And then the other is like you have some principles
Yeah.
which are absolutely inviolable. No matter what happens, no matter if you
Yep.
die or you will not violate those principles, right? And a lot of open core projects actually
Exactly.
think the utilitarian. I mean, the argument they say is that if we make like part of the project closed source, we'll actually end up contributing more in the free part, because we can sustain the project, right? But that's a slippery slope kind of a discussion, because then how much should we close it and all of that, right? So there is a lot of
Yeah.
moral decision making and moral ambiguities that go around, doing both, trying to make a living and doing FOSS. So,
Yeah. This is one of the things that I like about it. You don't ignore the like the moral questions. You like head for it straight. And I also like the fact that you brought up socially, because like nowadays, like if you are a business person, social is one word you don't say anywhere live or in a recording.
yeah.
So so like I also like the fact that you brought that up, and I feel like maybe some of that has influenced you in the way you run the company, because it's a very interesting sort of structure that you've brought up with Frappe and this whole idea of sandwich organizations. And I'd really love to hear about it from you.
Yeah, so it again comes from the core concept of liberty, right? And other
Yeah.
than sandwich, we are also trying to like run it very democratically, and everybody who's outside will say it with full skepticism that can you even do that, right? And but we are actually
Exactly.
trying to practice it, and it is all starts with this assumption that everybody, you trust everybody, like everybody
Hmm.
works in an organization, everybody is equal, like, or everybody has
Right,
equal rights, you can say that, right?
right, right.
and
Exactly.
and then your duty is to not, and then anything anybody does in the organization has to be done with consent. So you
Exactly.
can't tell that tomorrow 10 a.m. You are on customer support. You can't have those kind of, unless there is a consent, unless somebody agrees that okay,
Hmm.
I'm willing to do that job, and it has to be not forced consent but without coercion, right? I mean, and those are again very right moral dilemmas that you have to grapple. So
Right.
the concept is that pure flat organizations work only to maybe a 15 20 people. Beyond that, in flat organizations there is a problem of over communication overheads, because now people don't know
Have
what
to
they're
get
supposed
through.
to
Yeah.
do. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
And there is no clear, I mean, there is no order.
Right,
so
right.
so if you're a very small, it's like if you're it's like society. If you're a very small unit, you can be a tribe, but beyond the tribe, if you want to be a village, then you have to have some order. There has to be some structure
Exactly.
to way things are done. I mean, and
Right,
the
right.
challenge is that how do we do it without a traditional hierarchy? And I mean, traditionally organizations are visually also portrayed as a triangle, where you have the board of directors and the management and all of that, and and the people and middle management, and then the people who do the actual work, right? I mean, they're the most bottom.
Exactly.
So
Right,
yeah,
right.
we want to challenge these things. So we are saying that can the role of the company be to actually enable people rather than lead
Right,
people or direct people. People direct themselves. Our job is to make them successful, right, in whatever way they are. So that is the
right,
thing,
right.
and it's interesting. I mean, and we're absolutely clear about that we want to go this way. So yeah. um, did we lose? Yeah, I think we lost Abraham. um, Yeah, so I think we've lost Abraham. So I think he's asking me questions on the chat. Uh, I think till he can join back.
Uh,
Okay, you're back. Cool.
yeah. Okay.
Great, great, great.
All right. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. It just the server
No, no, no,
something
no problem,
happened.
no
I guess.
problem.
Yep. So
So,
I was about to. So like what I really found interesting from what you just said is the fact about providing the employees the freedom, the choice, and that sort of thing. And usually, with the companies, there's a lot of things about like the management of things, right? Like how do you manage whenever, especially when the company becomes big, right? If it's like a startup with 2 or 3 people, like usually all engineers, and like people can get away with that. But like when it becomes a big, huge organization, how do you like take the first of all it's a as a owner it's a big step like because like you have to trust yourself, all right, I'm doing the right thing, because if you don't then that's a big if, right? So like first of all, how did you take that step forward, and then what are the challenges involved in asking people, like letting or making people take ownership of their own work and the responsibility?
uh, yeah, again, just to, I think, again, good questions. I can give you. So, first is, you have to be in a privileged position to take these kind of calls. Now, I mean, we hit a point at which, sustainability was kind of given for us. We were not
Right.
kind of, struggling for money, right? And so that gave us a lot of breathing space to experiment with these ideas, even though being in the community and free software, I mean, these ideas were always floating around, and we were a small organization, and again, like I said, small organizations are always flat, so it's never a problem about hierarchy and all these things. Even though even in so a small organization, compensation becomes like the key element for anything. How
Yeah.
power is expressed in the organization is compensation, right? End of the day. So so that is one, and some of these ideas also happened because we explored something called alternative schooling. So when we had kids,
Mm.
we had some friends who were homeschooling their kids, and we got curious, obviously, I mean, why homeschool, right? So again, I mean, and then we realized that schooling is also like that. Our entire schooling is completely the power dynamics is that that the teachers, the educators, they own all the power. And
Mm.
as children, and even as
Yes.
learners through schools, colleges, you are essentially in a jail. You are
At the
essentially,
mercy.
your behavior
Yep.
is extremely controlled for hours. You have to sit in one position, you have to listen to somebody even if you're not in the mood of listening, right? And we take these things for granted, these powers that are taken away from children, right?
This is how it is.
Yeah, and so children's rights and all these things are not important, right? And when we looked at this whole education, it completely blew my head. I mean, why? And then we found that there are alternate models. There is a school called Summerhill, and if you guys have not heard about Summerhill,
Hmm.
you should look it up. It's in its centenary year. So that was the first school that really broke the norms, and
Right.
it said that children have equal rights as the adults. So imagine you are in an education institute where your rights are same as the rights of your teachers and your principals, right? And then you have one vote. So everybody in the school has a vote. There is no coercion. If you want to sit in classes, you sit. If you don't want to sit, you don't sit. And it's and then there is Sudbury Valley, right, which is the American version of Summerhill. And if you just explore that whole alternate schooling, you will realize, like, there is an amazing work that has been done through 100 years now, of trusting children
Right.
to take ownership of their own lives and their own so that really opened my mind. And again, coming from free software, I mean, we see some of these things, right? People contribute their time because they want to, right, in a way. So all these things connected, and I mean, I thought, why not. I mean, again, it became very clear, no, like you see Python, and it becomes absolutely clear this is right, and it became very clear that this is right, that everybody in the organization should have the same rights, and then the challenge becomes, how do we now express these rights as a group, through, so we do voting, we do a lot of calls and everything. And being a majority shareholder, obviously, it makes things easier that you don't have to. And then we have a very supportive shareholder also. Zerodha is our only other shareholder. And that
Right.
having that kind of support is also really easy for us to experiment. So while this group looks radical, I'm pretty sure the institutions of the future are going to be like that. Everybody is going to have equal rights, whether you're a manager or whoever you are, whether you're a shareholder or a person who was working in an organization.
Especially the pandemic things have sort of like accelerated the sort of process from like in my opinion, because everything is becoming asynchronous, and it may like it's sort of forcing schools and colleges to be able to like make account for the fact that, oh, what if a student isn't available at this point, or what happens if something happens, and this sort of things are not in a question. If you were in an accident and you were not able to attend the class, fine, you missed it. If you were not able to attend the exam, you missed it. And like there are many people who lost opportunities because of it. So like, it's really coming, and it may like when you really think about it from outside the scope, right, it really makes sense. But like you were dealt with a group of people who were born and brought up in this system, right? People were went to schools, colleges, graduated. So how was it communicating this to them, to those folks, your employees?
They didn't believe it, obviously, right? And they still, I mean, there is healthy skepticism even today in the organization. And if people are there on the call, I'm sure they can share their views. But I think it is changing every day. Every day people are believing that they can speak up.
Mm,
I think the first thing you have to do is you have to show it by our actions that anybody who speaks up should be encouraged, whether they are
mhm.
right or wrong. But everybody's
Right,
voice should be
right.
heard, because you should not prejudge anybody saying that oh, you just joined like 2 weeks ago. How come your
Mhm,
opinion
uh-huh.
is important? No, I mean, no, it's not like that. I mean, you have to really embody these principles in your day-to-day life, and that is the real
Right,
hard
right.
part. And then slowly convert people, because like you said, everybody comes from this power equation. So even people
Yeah.
who join, who have worked in other companies, they imbibe the same things. If I am senior, then the person who's junior to me should listen to me, right? And
Right, right.
and there is a lot of unlearning that happens, and you keep on challenging and you keep on discussing that, and I think so we did like a lot of things. We had elections, which was very interesting. We had an anonymous ballot, right? And
Mhm.
it was a very interesting election. And then everybody asked questions, and there was good scrutiny by the team, right, for all the candidates.
Right,
So we
right,
had 16
right.
candidates for 9 positions in the leadership council. And even
Right, right.
leadership council, the challenge is for me to really not take any decision without the
Mhm.
leadership council's explicit approval. And even hiring decisions are now scrutinized by the leadership council. So which is good. I mean, for me, as a manager and or as a CEO of the company, it is
Yes,
extremely,
sir.
yeah, it's extremely relieving, because
Yeah, yeah.
you suddenly, the responsibility of failure is off your head, right? Because you feel, okay,
Right, right,
if
right.
things don't work out, at
Yep.
least it's not on my head, it's on everybody's head.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a process. You have to. And then again, being in some of these alternate education circle really helped me. So I've been to this INDEC, which is the Indian Democratic Education Conference, and meeting people who are in
Right, right.
alternate education. They actually do that, right? Even children, right? I mean,
Mhm.
even
Mhm.
children you should not discount. Just because they are children,
Right.
their voice should be considered with lower weightage. It shouldn't be that way. I mean, children should be in control of their own lives, and not judging. They are all values that align with each other. One is being non-judgmental. Second is considering everybody
Right.
as an equal, and democracy. Some kind of democracy. I mean some decision making framework to make common decisions which affect everybody. So all these things are very much aligned. So if you
Right.
start putting these pieces together, they all help each other in a way. They all feed into each other.
Right. So again, this is also like very relevant, I think, in the education sphere. Like because we've always like, so like even if we look at the way like society, there's always this 18 years barrier everywhere. Until then, you're not really considered as someone who can think properly as a kid. And I think it's very relevant to the way at least India works basically nowadays, because so kids are basically thought like it's as it feels as though like kids are we see kids as an empty vessel, that for 18 years we fill them whatever we feel is like what we feel is important, and then after 18 years we'll just let them out and be like, let's see how this happens. So it's actually very weird. And so like what are few things that you would want to see like adopted in the education system or the way we view parenting as a
So
whole?
I think equal rights, no. I think equal rights. So when you say
Right.
equality, equality means so many things. No? I mean, I can say equal rights. Everybody has the same rights. Like even in our
Right.
family, like every decision is voted on by. There are only four of us in the family, but including
Right.
how much screen time the kids can have access to, right? And
Oh.
so everything is voted on, and after we started understanding that the kids are, I mean, you should not treat kids as like how you were treated, for example. I mean, you realize that your relationship with the children becomes very harmonious, because after a certain age, the relationship with the child and the parent is also becoming an antagonistic relationship, where you're always pushing the child to do something, like
Yeah,
wake up in the morning, finish your homework before you have your
right.
meal, or whatever. I mean, you're always nagging, right? The parents are
Right, right,
always,
right, right.
some
Right,
antagonism,
right.
and children are like, come on, let me do this now. I can figure this out on my own. And so the urge to understand that that children should be, and some parents really take it to extreme. I mean, and we met those parents in
Mhm.
some of the circles where every, like, children have unlimited screen time, unlimited gaming time. They don't even restrict their children from watching movies that are they are not supposed to watch, right? Age appropriate like, I mean, they completely trust their children.
Yeah, yeah.
The child can do whatever they want, and we are
Right,
not
right.
in that evolved. I can say we do have rules, but the rules are
Yeah,
framed in a democratic manner. So while
right,
so
right.
in democracy, what happens, we have a opportunity to explain the children why watching too much television is not good for you. It reduces your imagination or whatever, and then they can question us, right? In a way. So at least that discussion
Right,
happens and children are thinking about it, right? Okay, maybe there is something about it, right? And
right.
so I think
Exactly.
it's anything, you don't use authority. You don't judge people. You don't use authority, and
Yeah.
that has to be a lifestyle decision. It can't be just that you do it at your work, that you do it at, it has to be a lifestyle that you try to be. Yeah.
Right. So like yeah, that makes sense because even when you like ask someone to do something, right? Like there's a difference between explaining them to do like why you want them to do it and then deciding to do it and then just being like you have to do it because I want it. And like that's where the difference is, and that actually creates a culture of people thinking for themselves. And I think that is very important in today's society because like we have a lot of blind followers and people who lead them to pit holes. So like even if from political stance or whatever stance it is, I think this is something that's very relevant here in today. uh, so now from that point, let's take into a technical side of things. How was it like building a framework for your own company?
So
Well, on Python, yeah.
no, I just lost the last part of your
Yeah,
question.
the
Yeah.
Frappe framework.
So Frappe framework, yeah,
So,
it happened kind of serendipity, because I started writing in 2005, and there was no Django in 2005. There was no Rails in 2005. There was only a framework called Zope,
right, right.
and I don't know if anybody has heard of Zope, but it's like a really old Python framework. And because I picked Python, I mean, I hate braces, right? So I can't use Java or anything else. So so Python, because no braces. So it has to be Python. And then in Python, the only framework was Zope, right? And Zope was terrible. And it wasn't terrible. It had some really
Mm-hmm.
good ideas, but it did. I mean, it was not very elegant. It was not very Pythonic. It came with its own object database. It didn't even support third-party databases, at least when we
Right,
started.
right.
So it came with its own object database that you had to use, and some really cool concepts. But yeah, And then this whole idea of metadata, no, which was semantic web, which was very
Mm-hmm.
popular at that time. That can you like can everything become like a two-layer description, no? So data plus metadata, not just data. And that that also struck to me, like again, it was a very moment of clarity. I mean, like, yeah, metadata has to be first class. You can't bake metadata into code. Essentially metadata gets baked into code,
Right,
right?
right.
And the benefits of that just keep on accruing, even after 15 years. I mean, it is killer that you are able to put metadata in data, and then you are able to manipulate metadata at whatever point you want, which gives you
Right.
like a lot of flexibility in the way you can build objects and build stuff. So I mean, that's one thing that really stands apart in Frappe framework, that metadata is absolutely first class.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep,
this is
yep.
why companies are now really seeing the value of this. But yeah, but it's all again, started with some few ideas put together, and yeah, kept going.
So, you started at a point when like there was no framework. So, like nowadays, if someone starts makes a startup, it's like, oh, use Django, use this framework, that framework. So you came from you were probably one of those people from that era, or make things yourself, start writing from scratch. So like how does it view the like the shift in industry, the change of the way people pursue web development, or making things?
I
How
think
does
it's a
it feel?
huge opportunity. I don't know if anybody is following Alan Kay. Alan Kay has very similar thoughts, right? uh,
Right.
there is a talk by Alan, like you should read why Alan Kay thinks Linux is junk, right? Because like 90% in Linux nobody uses. It is essentially, we are stuck with what is called incrementalism,
um,
right? Incrementalism means you don't think of
right, right.
starting a few layers below, right? You just take whatever, and this is like accelerated with the whole JavaScript ecosystem, right? In a way where there is like extreme incrementalism in
Right,
how we think, and
right,
see, some of these
right,
concepts are
right.
not very hard, when you really think about it. uh, you know End
Mm,
of the day, computations, algorithms, queuing, these is all, I mean, every software system is built of these components, and and
right,
doesn't
right.
matter how much you abstract, you still have to handle queuing. So right from the microprocessor onwards,
True, true.
all we are doing is handling concurrency, right? So uh, and
We're still fighting for it actually nowadays.
yeah.
The whole concurrency fight is still going on. Yeah.
So I mean, it's a great opportunity for people who want to think fresh, and like think like, uh,
Mhm.
but it's challenging, when you have to come to sell these things to other people, and it has to be certain level of quality, or
Yeah.
certain, you should be in certain influential zones, like either MIT or Stanford, or Silicon Valley,
Hmm.
and if you're able to push those ideas through those influence zones, then you are. So I think the challenge for us, that being in India, we had like very little influence to push these ideas, and that's why it took us a very long time also. But yeah, that's the journey.
Right. No, but still the fact that you're still using it after all these years, because like like tech, it comes like this and it goes like this. So the fact that it's took all these years is actually a pretty good statement for like this the awesomeness of the framework and the stability of it. So
See,
yeah. So then again, oh yeah, please.
yeah, no, go ahead, ask your question. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I was going to ask, so like what are things, so like with this in mind, like like these are things. So first of all, these are things that you have, like from stack point of view, you have your own framework, you're putting out your own things. That is different from almost every other company. Then you have this democratic structure, that you have this ideas that how the company should be run. So like what do you look for when you're hiring people? And not just like maybe low level engineers, but like maybe people who are like going to be in some senior position.
To be honest, no, we don't look for these. We don't always look for fit, in terms of because we understand not everybody is going to be coming with this kind of a mindset. Uh,
Right, right.
and again, it starts with not judging people too much, right? In a way that
True, true.
so yeah, I mean, eh, explicitly, we try to hire people for their capabilities, their passion, their interest in doing the stuff, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, you're having having truly found what you want to do in life, which is very rare. If you can find that, that is ideal. uh, or see, my views about hiring are also very different than the team, and maybe I'm not always involved in hiring, but I'm not very like I maybe I didn't scrutinize enough usually during hiring, because I think if people are I don't think nobody wants to fail in life. I mean, you have to start from that assumption.
Right.
Nobody starts to join a company to say I'm going to fail
Yeah.
here and I'm going to like not do well in life. But uh, and it's usually the environment that fails them in most cases. So I think, yeah,
Mhm.
while we hire for
Right.
talent and we hire for the fit and the interest and some of these things, but I mean there are no special things we do to hire for culture or anything. I mean, for anything we want to get diverse people, no? So we hire for diversity of opinion. I mean, but yeah, so political philosophy
Right.
is not really a criteria for hiring. I mean, but we hope that when people join,
Mhm.
they follow the. I mean, the culture has to be strong enough for them to then fit in the culture rather than try and change it.
Right, because like this is something. So there are so companies like GitLab. So they have a very different structure from what people are used to, and
Yeah.
they've all in the if you go through the handbook, it's like they've mentioned that some people were not able to adjust to that sort of lifestyle and that sort of company, so
Hmm.
and they ended up leaving, and so it's actually I feel like that would be a big challenge because of people wanting to go back to how it used to be. But I'm glad that yeah, it's worked out for you.
No, it happens. People have left because they find the working too chaotic. Uh,
Right, right.
last, especially with the pandemic, I think people struggled, and
Mm-hmm.
then and then not having proper structure at work, because they can, and then there is always this thing, like when you go on a buffet meal, right? You eat too much, and then you regret, right? So I think this buffet meal effect happens at Frappe a lot. Especially it used to happen when we were even less structured, right, as a company. So people, got excited about so many things, and they took so many things on their plate, and then they burned themselves out.
Right,
And and at the end of a year or 2 years, they had no idea what they did, right? Because they could have done anything and they did anything. And I'm sure at the end of 2 years, they are
right.
so happy that they did
Yeah,
everything that we just having a chat with one of my colleagues today, and I mean, and today he's doing so well, but then because 2 years he struggled, right? I mean, and that's while it looks like a
right,
struggle
right.
to some people, it's an exploration, right? So yeah, it's not for everybody. Also, I understand, and there is a lot of science behind it. No, there is this Sheena Iyengar has this book on choice, right? That I mean, that's why we have religion, right? I mean, so that you don't have to make every decision, right? So.
Right,
Uh,
right, right.
so choices people are not comfortable with choosing because they feel they may have taken the wrong decision. They are just people are mostly okay with following whatever the norm has been set, and taking fewer decisions and following.
Yeah,
So yeah, it has its downsides also. It's
which is also why we have a lot of these with big heroes and people following them, and that sort of culture, in, even in our politics, basically.
yeah.
So when it comes to again, when it comes so like moving forward from the company and like tech part of it, like FOSS in India, right? FOSS in India, like the thing is that we have so many talented people, like people from India, like working on different very crucial piece of tech that actually like make the world run
Mhm.
pretty much. But when it comes to international community, what does the Indian community get a bad rap? Why do you think that is?
So Indian community in FOSS you're talking, or generally?
No, generally in tech sphere, like like if I find that a lot of there's a lot of skepticism when it comes to Indian people, like, and rather than someone who's from maybe different nationalities. So, like, what do you think that is?
So I think in India we lack appreciation for quality, and this goes across everything we do. No?
Right.
Not only software, but even in everything. The way we build our houses, to the way our public spaces are maintained, to the kind of products that you buy. Right? I mean, we are not a quality conscious society, and maybe because we are not an abundant society, no? We are scarce, like, or we are growing from a scarce
Mm-hmm.
society in an abundant society, right? And I mean, that's the general
Make do with what you have.
make do with what you have, right? And then when I traveled to Germany, I mean,
Yeah.
and then the first thing that hits you is the long distance train comes exactly on the dot. If it is supposed to come at 4:32, it will come at 4:32 dot. I mean, and it,
Right.
it
Right.
blows your mind, right? How come long distance trains be on time, right? And they just take it for
Right.
granted, right? And everything in the culture, no? Everything, every house is painted. It's like a very small thing, right? But when you
Right.
go to developed countries, every
Right.
house is painted. And if you look at India, I mean,
Right.
obviously we are not painting our houses enough, generally, right? And it makes the neighborhood look so pretty. I mean, everybody has landscaping
Right.
right outside their house, or the streets are beautifully maintained, right? And there is no potholes, and there is the footpaths or the sidewalks. There is, like, all the tiles are there. There are no missing tiles or broken tiles, right? I mean, it's a whole culture that
Right.
we like. This is when I traveled abroad, I saw the difference. I mean, we are not brought up in the culture to appreciate quality.
Mhm.
And this goes across
Right.
our education system also. Again, coming linking that part is that I was talking to one of our German community members, right? And he said he graduated from one of the top
Mhm.
engineering colleges there, and he says only 15% of those who joined with him graduated. So in Germany, they look to fail
Oof.
you. They don't look to pass you. Like in India, all they want is they want you to pass, and go to the next. And it is so difficult for colleges to fail students, no? Because again, they don't. Number one, they don't have the space, no. Whatever large student failed, and the next batch also comes in, right?
Yeah.
How are they going to handle so many students,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
And then you have all these political things,
Right.
that my wife is a college professor, and sometimes you fail people and they'll call the politician, and
Mhm.
you'll have to forcefully pass people, right? uh, but then what does it
Right.
say
Right.
about our culture? No, I mean, I mean, in Germany, but they have
Mm.
apprenticeship school and diplomas also, right? So if you are not there, you
Right.
just do an apprenticeship or a diploma, and then you finish your education. If you're not fit for being an engineer, you will not be an engineer. So I think
Well,
that kind of,
at the same time, yeah. Please continue. I'll ask after.
yeah, no, I'm saying this whole quality culture is what we lack as a society. Though that is changing,
Like,
and I hope that changes with time, and we're already seeing better quality stuff happening in India now. So I think this is why we maybe
so,
look behind.
so, so again, another thing that's different between a country like Japan and India is the fact that in India, if you're not an engineer or a doctor, you really haven't done anything worthwhile in life. Like, if you're a diploma course, if you've done something in diploma, like, it means that there's something wrong, that you either slacked off in school or you're not
Yeah.
clever enough. So this sort of mentality actually pushes a lot of students who probably would be great artists or would be great in other fields. They are being pushed into engineering, and it's like, if you are going to fail, how many students will you fail? And like, again, the nowadays, and like, what makes all these, like, a lot of students complain, a lot of, like, political parties. So I think this is the other side of that coin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, again, it's we value the degree more than the, like, what we learn. No, I mean, uh,
Yeah.
this is exactly why education also fails, because it doesn't. The goal is not to teach you. The goal is to give you a degree. And whatever you learn
Right.
is on your
Right.
own. I mean, by your own interest, whatever you learn, you learn.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like, so something that I have noticed recently is, like, so, like, after a certain point of time, especially when like people like Zuckerberg came along, like dropouts are so cool. College doesn't do my stuff, and then the start of sort of project culture or GitHub. I have these things on GitHub start coming up, and like what we have nowadays, what we have is like learn transfer technology that that would make you employable rather than actually getting into tech or getting the basics done or understanding what's like mostly happening. You can do certain projects, have it in your GitHub code, and maybe like apply for countries. So like part of this comes from our need to be employed, right? Like we are like in general we are a middle class society, and having a job is like something that we consider as paramount. So this is something that comes from that. But like I feel one thing that we see that education so the fact that we consider education outside college is something that I think that's a right step, a step in the right direction. But at the same time, we are again compromising quality for the sake of, oh, I did this project, I know these stack, this stack is what I done. So like I think we're moving forward, but we are still repeating the mistakes that we have made in the past. So what do you think about that?
So your specific question is on curriculums, right? Or uh,
No, not just curriculums, but like this is the culture, right? Like, it's a culture of especially like there are these people are like people put out projects. People learn. Okay, I learned React and I learned Django, right? But like, what basically happens in HTTP based request? I have no idea, right? So like you said, we are what we are compromising on quality. And it's coming back to it's from the point that you made earlier, in the sense like we can show like I have these projects, I have done this and that for the I can show you that, but when it comes to the quality of what I know, I am still lacking. So that is
yeah. So the fads, no? I mean, technology fads, like everybody. So we do this
yeah.
hackathons, no? I mean, I remember, we haven't done last year, but the first time we did hackathon, everybody was making an Android app. And then second time, third time we did app hackathon, then everybody was doing OpenCV, or I mean, there was a fad. Every hackathon has to do OpenCV, and then the
Right,
fad now is everybody does some kind of Keras or AI or ML or whatever. No? I mean, neural networks. And then the worst is APIs. No? APIs
right.
are the worst of everything, because so many times people just
It doesn't
just
even
use third party APIs, cloud APIs, and then they said, okay, we did this, right? And they don't even understand anything, right? I mean, and then
exactly,
and
exactly.
then there is this whole push from all these, when you look at microservices and all these things. I mean, there is only one goal, is that
Right.
you should write software for the cloud. I mean, the whole goal of microservices, when you think about it, is and who pushes microservices? I mean, it is essentially Amazon, AWS, and all these guys. I mean, you have to essentially, you need multiple instances to run one piece of software. I mean, who says that? I mean, 99% of
Right,
software doesn't
right,
need to run multiple OSs. No, it doesn't need to be multiple virtual machines. But now you are starting with the assumption that everything has to be running in like 20 machines, and you need Kubernetes to orchestrate those 20 machines, right? I mean, and that is what people are doing
right.
in schools and colleges, right? I mean, that is the uh,
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, you don't need 20 machines, no? I mean, for anything. I mean, only for extreme use cases. And even if you're hitting scale, you can take one piece of your existing monolith and put it on another machine. That can always happen. So
Right,
there is
right, right.
yeah, I mean, there is a lot of commercial interest in the way we behave. I mean, so a lot of firms decide, a lot of these companies give APIs to students, to give and then get them addicted on specific APIs and all of that, right? So yeah, I mean,
Right,
the interest for these, and now you have this GitHub code pilot and all, right? I mean, I say,
right,
essentially they just want you to
right.
use proprietary platforms, right, everywhere, uh, and colleges are
It's
buying it.
also a form of dependence.
Yeah, and colleges are buying it. No, I mean, Kubernetes is like hot thing, right? I mean, like,
Right.
I don't understand why Kubernetes needs to be hot. I mean, there is absolutely no reason. So like 99% of people can do away without knowing anything about Kubernetes, right? But yeah.
That's true. Yep. So now we are like really like we're really hitting towards the end of this whole session. So I want to ask you, like, what do you want to see from the FOSS community of India in the like years to come? Like, what do you want to see? Like, what do you want to see happen from the FOSS community in India?
So I think the code, there is always debate and code and community. I think we need code. We need more code
Yeah,
for sure. We need more
right.
projects, and we are seeing that because there is a lot of venture funding that's coming in, right? Only last month,
Mm-hmm.
Tooljet got launched on Hacker News, and I think Navneet is also on the FOSS United group, right? And I'm sure he's entertaining
Right,
offers for
right,
funding, right, already. So now the message everybody is getting is that FOSS can make you rich. I mean, and
right,
and
right, right.
and that's not a bad thing, I would say, right? I mean, anything that helps drive a creation of software. So lot more things. I think the whole consumption of software has moved from single use to network use. Whether it's Google
Mhm.
search or I mean, Wikipedia is such a beautiful example because it's one of the rare platforms that is community driven, I would say. So I think one of the goals with FOSS is that
Right, right,
can we come out with more platforms like Wikipedia? I mean, so one platform we're experimenting is
right.
like the whole revolution of e-learning, right? And Byju's is valued $15 billion,
Yep.
right? And then White Hat Junior, and you all that going on, right? And why can't communities come together and build this platform? I mean, there is no rocket science. No, it's a crud. It's essentially
Right.
essentially you just need a platform.
CRUD application.
Yeah, it's a nice looking CRUD application, and getting people hooked onto the platform, and then letting independent creators publish courses. I mean, why can't we do it as a community, right? I mean,
Right,
so
right,
so that is one thing we see that this whole networked applications, and then these networked applications should be run not only fast but also through communities and through some kind of a democratic decision making model, or some kind of a neutral decision making
right.
model, no? Not for profit motive. And there are so many such platforms, I mean, which so I definitely see more. I would definitely love to see more platforms, right? I mean, social network, like, why isn't there a community driven social network? Even though we have Mastodon, right? I mean, and obviously, I mean,
Yeah.
but there is a space for a monolithic social network, but run as Wikipedia, right? Without ads, so you're not selling out anybody's
That
data,
makes sense. Yes.
and you are making it nice and easy to use for people to onboard. No, I mean, why should your resume be on LinkedIn, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't somebody just come out with a really nice fast driven, community driven, no ads, no commercial motive kind of platform to publish your resume, right? So we want to drive some of these
Right,
things, and
right.
I think we see a lot of opportunity, I think, in creating these platforms, and then they will coexist. I mean, even though I'm not saying that they should replace all the I mean,
Existing.
yeah, I mean, if they can, but I mean, there is enough coexistence, right? I mean, people who want
Right,
yeah.
right.
So I think that is the next barrier, or the next opportunity for communities to now you know look at platforms also, and not just let not just do the code. Yeah. So that's something I look forward to. Yeah.
So like, so the one question that comes with that sort of thing is like, how do you think that it will such as a setup would, because like in FOSS, everything is like happy. Everything should have the basic idea is that everything should happen in the open, and that everything should happen in a very democratic way. But like once it becomes a platform, and there's a scope for commercialization of that, how do you think that will play out?
No, so first of all, it has to be owned by a non-profit, right? So so every platform is
Right,
a part of some legal entity, right? So the moment you say that Wikipedia is a non-profit,
right.
lot of that profit motive is gone, right? So that's the first step,
Mm-hmm.
and the second step would be then then the people and creating structures. And FOSS cannot be democratic, and I'll tell you why. Is because the effort put in by people is disproportionate, and
Right,
so
right,
there has to be some way that you contribute, and then you get a vote in the way things go, right?
right,
So contributors, it
right,
should be democratic in the sense that contributors should get the chance to vote, right? So whoever is on the platform, right? Say suppose we're creating the e-learning platform, and
right.
while I think the code,
Right.
so there will be code contributors, but there will be a lot of content creators and maybe people who will publish courses on the platform, and all of these people should get the vote on how the platform should evolve and all of that. So then we'll have to create, and that's how Wikipedia also sustains, right? Because they have there is a system of resolving conflicts, right, in the content. There is a whole system of
Right. Right.
moderation and
Right.
all of that, and even though it's not perfect, and there have been cases where but it's still the best system we have. So
Yes, it is.
we have to evolve, right? And if somebody does a bad job of Wikipedia management, no, I mean, somebody can take the entire Wikipedia content and build a new platform, right? In a way. Uh, so those
Yes.
those have to be experiments that you have to then go ahead and do it. And see, end of the day, people smell, no? I mean, if it smells commercial,
Yes.
people are going to walk away. So you in fact in FOSS,
That's right.
that is like it's a very underrated value of FOSS, that people will be suspicious of you by default, even though you're doing
Pork.
FOSS.
Yeah. 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 Oh, yeah.
So
That
you
is true.
have to
That is
pass this test of purity as such, right? And
true.
people will be very skeptical before they start using any of these platforms. But I mean, somebody has to start, and then we'll
Right.
figure it as we go.
Right. Right. So, like, finally, this is a final question that I have for you. So,
Mhm.
for start from this whole hacker culture sort of thing, right? And like as time went by, some of it is lost, some of it is like it's retained in some parts of FOSS world. How do you think? How relevant do you think the hacker culture still is? And should the hacker culture evolve, or what is your stand on that sort of thing?
So again, it is. I think there are two broad waves, I can say. One is your
Right.
capitalist wave, and one is the sharing. Whether you want to call it FOSS or hacker culture or whatever, it essentially says that we will share whatever we make. We will distribute and we'll give it. I mean, our
Right.
goal is not to make money. We don't care about money at all. And that's a wave, and
Right.
then people who are motivated by, and then there is a lot of satisfaction in doing that also.
Right.
Just forgetting the whole sustainability side of things, that I still have to earn a living, but that has been there, even in culture, even in religion. You have people who are dedicated to not living the capitalist life, which is essentially being a cog of
Right.
some society structure, that you have a specific role for which you get
Right.
rewards, and then you are your
Exactly.
wishes don't matter, as long as you get the rewards, but you are guaranteed survivability.
Right.
But in the alternate path, you're not
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed survivability, but you can do whatever you want, right?
Okay.
So both these things will
Right. Right.
exist.
Right.
We need both, and there will always be
Yeah.
tension between these two things, that doing things for yourself and doing things for others, right? Essentially, and I think it
Right.
is it is
Right.
for
Right.
everybody to balance, and it is for society to balance. So I don't think the hacker culture or anything
Mm-hmm.
will go away anytime, because it's essential to being human, that you do things that you really want to do without caring about what reward you're going to get for it. And there will always be things you
Right.
will have to
Right.
do to get rewards, because you are dependent on society for your food, your safety, for everything else, right? So you have to do both, and I think
Right.
society
Right.
will sustain both. So I don't think it's going to go away. So I don't think you should be worried about it. It will exist in some form or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yep. Hey, Rushabh, it's been a really great conversation with you. Like these are, some of the things that we talked that the kind of things that we can only talk have. Those are the kind of conversations that we can only have with someone like you. And like I'm really grateful, and I'm really happy that I brought you in for this whole session. It
Yeah. Thanks.
it's been like the yeah, I mean, all these things are I think are very relevant, because like especially today, because like we are very eager to build startups, very eager to build the Google, the next Facebook, but we are not really thinking about what we are building or the kind of things we are building. And in such a scenario, I think your work you do is very relevant. It's something that we must all actually learn from, and I genuinely feel that. So thanks, Rushabh, for joining us today. From everyone at the community, I genuinely want to
Great, great.
thank you.
Thanks a lot. It was a great conversation. And these are ideas that I'm always excited about to share. And I think I feel it's my duty to
Uh,
share in whatever I've learned through my journey. So maybe we can reinforce and happy to connect to people who if you guys are there on the Telegram group or anything, if you need any help or just
right.
want to bounce off, yeah. Yeah, thanks for inviting me, and really happy to have this chat.
Right. All right. So thanks everyone for joining us for today's
Thanks.
session. I hope you all had a great time. All right. Thanks everyone.